Okay, the lesson for tonight, or for 5-1, 5-2, and 5-3, all three of them is solving inequalities with variables on both sides and compound inequalities. Okay, this is your first example, and this is just like when we did equations with variables on both sides. Now we're doing inequalities with variables on both sides. So notice there's an x here and an x here. So for this example, the very first thing I'm going to do is distribute the 4 over here and distribute the 5 over here. This would be 8 minus 4x is less than or equal to 5x minus 10. And then once I distribute everything, I want to get my x's on the same side. So to do that, I'm going to add 4x to both sides. That way I know that it will be positive 9x on the right side. So I get 9x minus 10 on the right hand side, and I get 8 on the left hand side. From there, I'm going to solve it like a normal inequality by adding 10 to both sides here. I'm going to get 18 is less than or equal to 9x. Then I'm going to lastly divide both sides by 9 and get that x is greater than or equal to 2. So I'd switch that around and make it x on the left hand side and get that. So quickly to graph that, I would draw a line, put 2 in the middle, and close dot on 2, and shade everything to the right. And the interval notation for the same problem would be brackets 2, comma, infinity. Okay, the next slide is all notes about compound inequalities, and this is new. So I want you to write these notes down. You can start here. This is the most important sentence. We're either going to be dealing with an and or an or with compound inequalities. And here's some good examples of what those look like. So here, we're always going to have an and or an or in the problem. And inequalities can be written in two ways. It can be written like the top example, or it can be written like the bottom example. This is stating that x is between the numbers 2 and 6. Okay, so x has to be, it could be 3, 4, or 5, but it won't be bigger than 6 and it won't be less than 2. Down here, or inequalities is it can only be one or the other. It could either be less than 2 or it could be greater than 6. X could be less than 2 or greater than 6. And so, and inequalities, when we graph them, they look like this. Okay? They look like these two. They go in. Okay? Or inequalities go out like the oars of a boat. Or inequalities go out like the oars of a boat. Okay, here's two examples of compound inequalities. Now this is written, it clearly has two inequalities here, one here and one here. So when I have multiple inequalities, I'm going to do all three or both sides at the same time. I'm going to subtract 3 from all three sides, all at the same time. It will cancel in the middle. On the right hand side I'll have 6. In the middle now I'll have 2x. And on the left hand side I'll have negative 8. Then I'm going to divide by 2. All three sides. Divide by 2. Cancel. I'll get x in the middle is less than 3 on the right. Is less than or equal to negative 4 on the left. So this is one way of stating the answer. Okay? As a graph, this would look like this. Quickly I would have negative 4, 0, 3. I would have a closed dot on negative 4, an open dot on 3, and everything in between would be shaded. The interval notation would be brackets, negative 4, comma 3 for that problem. Okay, example number 2. On example number 2, I actually have to do 2 separate problems. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to start by adding 4 to both sides. I would get A is greater than 5. That would be one solution. I would always write or in the middle. And on the right-hand side, I'm going to add 4 to both sides as well over here. So I would get A is less than 1. So my entire answer is A is greater than 5 or A is less than 1. As I graph that, it's going to be like the oars of a boat. So I'll have 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to have open dots on both 1 and 5, and they are both going to be shaded outward. This one will be shaded outward to the right. They will not overlap each other at all. Okay? And then the interval notation is slightly confusing. For OR inequalities, it would look like this. It would say negative infinity, comma 1, parentheses, union, that U means union, parentheses 5, comma infinity. Okay? We will go over this more in class, but that is interval notation for and OR inequalities. Here's 2 problems. I want you to practice these 2, and the answers will come up at the bottom in just a second. So pause it and practice these 2. Try to get them right. Okay, so here is the answers that's coming up for you to look at. And you can check them. This can be written, and inequalities can be written like this, or they can also be written with just the X in the middle. So either way is correct for and inequalities, only for and inequalities. OR inequalities have to be written as separate inequalities, okay? They have to be written as separate inequalities, okay? So make sure you take good notes and bring them to class with you tomorrow.